Please start.
Hello, everybody. So we welcome you at the Startup Leaders Club, online panel discussion by inspirational leaders of innovation and drivers of change. And today we are discussing trends, opportunities, and investments in healthcare, biotech, and life science. My name is Nadia Nestirova. I'm an independent director of the board of the National Alternative Investment Management Association and advisor to a number of GPs in private equity, real estate, venture capital, and hedge funds. And our today's speakers include Leon Eisen, PhD and founder and CEO of Oxytone, and James Bates, CEO and founder of edtech Medical. So we'll start with a brief introduction of each of our speakers today. Hello, Leon. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, Nadia. Great to be here again. Thank you very much. My name is Leon Eisen. I am founder and CEO at Oxytone Medical that developed the world's first FDA-cleared pulse oximetry monitor totally at risk. And I'm inventor of this innovation.
Thank you, Leon. And James, could you also introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is James Bates. I'm the founder and CEO of edtech Medical. We have invented the world's first fully automated medical visit. In times of COVID, it actually gives a no-touch, low-touch visit to revolutionize healthcare.
Thank you so much, James. And Leon, you wanted to share with us some of your thoughts on the basic key points we need to address in today's discussion as the most active things as the avant-garde of healthcare.
Yeah, sure, it will be great. So as you can see, healthcare just experienced a huge change. And this graph that compare conventional MSCI World Index with the same healthcare index just revealed last month revealed that there is a huge gap start to grow. So it means that healthcare experienced a huge impact of COVID, and we have to think about new mindset, how we can solve these challenges. And I think it opened great opportunities to new businesses, to new startups, because it's a whole pivot point for the healthcare industry, what we experience today. So I would like just to touch some very important points, I think pain points that really change the healthcare today. First of all, we all experience the huge rise of telemedicine. Just today, I check Livongo, and today Livongo share price just up about 15 or 20%, something like this. So that's amazing. So every day we watch some huge growth of totally new approach, telemedicine approach to the business. Before it was like nice to have. Today, I think it's very difficult to find any healthcare provider who is not using telemedicine specifically for the last 3 months. Another very important point we could discuss is how COVID impact on traditional employee-based healthcare insurance. And specifically in the United States, it was historically all insurance was about made by the companies, and it was some I would say side insurance model, health reimbursement, called health reimbursement arrangement, where just I'm like employer. I give to my employee, for example, $5,000. Take this money and go find some coverage somewhere else. And because today all companies are looking for how to reduce their expenses, we think that this trend will continue, and maybe this trend outperform the conventional employer-based health insurance. Also, COVID is a very pain point about elderly patients, elderly people, and COVID-19 just revealed that we totally not prepared, wasn't prepared to how to how to save our elderly, our parents. And we see that nursing homes like institute doesn't work anymore. So it's start of end of nursing home institutions. And I think elderly people prefer to be at home. And today, what I see and all my colleagues in different companies, they prepare to move and to create technology that will enable to monitor elderly patients and keep patients at home and not in nursing home. A very important point about racial disparities, because COVID again revealed that there is a huge impact on minorities. And this is what we have to do something with these. And this is also requires some a change of mindset. Drugs. As we can see, first of all, many drug companies start to produce drugs back in the United States. And there is a fighting against the high price. So I expect that the business model in drugs development and drugs pricing will be changed dramatically, and we will see totally new business model in the next couple of years. Another very interesting point we can discuss, how COVID influenced on healthcare management. And as we understand today, it's important to move some maybe primary care capabilities, primary care responsibility to non-physicians. This is what will enrich our services for patients. And at the same time, we can create new capabilities using some physicians who are retired. So we can be prepared to the next outbreak, and we can create a total army of retired healthcare practitioners, nurse practitioners that will be able and ready to help if something happens next time. So it will be change in preparation to the next outbreak. And the most important from business point of view, how all these points could be introduced and into new business models, and how we can make money in healthcare, make money out of all these changes. And for example, I think that it will be a huge shift towards payment model called payment per capita, pay per capita. And this is very important model that enables to pay for all volume of services, not in each case separately. That will reduce the cost for beneficiaries. At the same time, will enable to keep some revenue and keep healthcare providers alive. And this will require also change of healthcare providers' mindset and workflow as well. So all these steps just points of discussion today, and I think these what we will expect to have and to change in the next couple of years.
Thank you so much, Leon. And James, you also wanted to share some insight and your own perception of the story. Leon, could you please allow the screen for James? Yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time today. You know, when we start looking at healthcare, just as Leon mentioned, there's a very obvious problem. In fact, it's just like the guy with the arrow in the head when the doctor's asking him, so what seems to be the problem? The problem is, of course, cost. When we look at how much it costs, specifically in the United States, we see that per capita spending continues to skyrocket. We're going over $16,000 a year per person this year. And of course, families cannot afford that. And we are in the middle of bankrupting not only families, but governments and companies. Everybody out there is saying the same thing. The healthcare system is broken. On top of the expense, and really kind of what's driving the expense, is that there is a shortage of healthcare providers. The people that are able to actually see patients, provide that access, are limited. And because of this, the costs will continue to go up. And no matter what governments or individuals do, that cost does not seem to have a different option. The amazing thing is, although costs continue to go up, the clinics that actually see patients, primary care and urgent care here in the United States, general practitioners in Europe, they're not making very much money. So nobody wants to go to school for 20 years to become a doctor and at the same time not make any money. And who pays the price for a system like this? It's the patients. As you can see, it takes months for you to actually get an appointment with your provider if you live in Boston. And as wait times continually climb for all different types of healthcare, everybody screams. And whether you're on the left side or the right side, screaming about the problem isn't going to solve it. Whether it's a single payer system or the type of convoluted system we have today, the problem is there are not enough doctors and too many patients. So when you break down the system as a healthcare company, as an artificial intelligence healthcare startup, we start to look at the competing motivations between payers, health systems, and physicians. What we see is that insurance companies, they want to pay the same or less for the same result. They're not trying to get patients to be better. They just want to save money and spend less money. Health systems like big hospitals with clinics that are associated with them, these health systems, they want more profit, which in general means they want more surgeries. Doctors, they want to get paid for all of the work and pain that they went through to go through medical school. They also want to support their family. And at the end of the day, they want more profit for the doctor, not the hospital or the payer. These competing motivations have created a very interesting system that we have today, which is incapable of being fixed. Add on to this, the very interesting situation that we have with COVID, where we now need a light touch, no touch visit for every single person who walks through the door. This means that we need asynchronous and synchronous telemedicine. And the point of care must be agnostic. Means they're seen at home, maybe they're seen in a retail outlet, they're seen in a pharmacy, they're seen in their car, they're seen in their clinic, they're seen in the hospital. In the United States, the billing level is, of course, incredibly important. As you see these patients, the amount of money you earn as a provider or a clinic is not high. Thus, you have to be able to bill at the same level. In times of COVID, you can't have a provider or a physician basically make the decision on where the patient is going to be seen. You need a system that will automatically determine where to send patients that are either at risk of catching COVID because they have some type of compromised immune system, or where to send the patient because they do have COVID. This artificial intelligence system that will enable asynchronous, synchronous telemedicine and be able to collect all the measurements, whether they're in home or in the office, and automatically triage the patients is what the COVID world requires. However, the cause of the healthcare crisis that we have today was long before COVID. The artificial intelligence system must eliminate all of the human clerical work that's involved with medical visits. This means data collection and data documentation must be done automatically. And when you do this, you can use the doctors for what they were meant to do: diagnose, treat patients, not do documentation. As such, when you start looking at the different options, artificial intelligence and augmenting the capability of the doctor becomes very possible. You can now do patient care guidance and telemedicine all through your mobile phone. You can tell the patient automatically where to go. What we see here is the world's first super doctor. And as AdviNow Medical, this is what we have created. I don't want to make this conversation about AdviNow Medical, so I will go ahead and stop it here. However, what we need is super doctor efficiency. Artificial intelligence and augmented reality that is coming from the startup community today is actually solving not only the issues that COVID has brought us, but the issues that healthcare had inherently before this crisis began. Nadia?
Yeah, sure. So, Leon, do you have any comments? Would you like to add something as well on James's presentation?
Yeah, it's really very interesting. Thank you, James. And this is the future. This is actually the future. I understand the old challenges, how to implement this. I am working with physicians. To move physicians, just if you tell physician, I give you data analytics, they run. They run immediately. They don't want data analytics. They want to decide by themselves. So it's very challenging. It's very important to position correctly all these things in front of physician, not to scare them and not to take their job, because they feel all the time that somebody want to take their job instead of help them. It's very, very difficult to work with physicians today. And as even level of professor, they are almost not, we're not going to work with some startups because they're busy with their stuff, only if you pay a lot, and or something like this. And so it's very important to work with some middle level of physicians and nurses, so they are more open to some new offer and new technology, because they're interested to make their own career and they can piggyback on new technology. Otherwise, they cannot do anything. And so it's very important to understand how to penetrate with new technology into the current workflow. And what's important that COVID just changed the mind of physicians. Even I know some physicians, I talked to him half a year ago. He told me, look, I don't want that patient use pulse oximetry at all at home. It's not his, it's our. We have to use it in ICU. Why patient is using pulse oximeter at home? I don't want him. And today he changed his mind. Okay, I cannot control now all patients, so let them use pulse oximetry. So there is a shift. There is a shift, but it will take a lot of time to make money out of all artificial intelligence stuff. Even if we go again to companies like Livonga and others, and they just tell, okay, we're doing artificial intelligence, but this is on the radar, because the main revenue, the main money they're doing from employers who pay them to keep their employees at work. That's all. That's all. And all artificial intelligence is just some augmented technology that helps to do this. So this is not prominent. It's not on the top of technology. I did artificial intelligence for this stuff. It's something that helps to make money and to position your business correctly. And mostly we do this to raise money. Because for real life, if you come to the hospital and say, I bring you data analytics, I bring you artificial intelligence, they say, no, bring us healthier patient or readmission reduction. How you do this? We don't care. So this is my input, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would have to disagree since our system's being used in 18 hospitals and profitability in those hospitals has gone up by over 50% in the last, since they started adopting it. What artificial intelligence does, specifically the automation of the medical visit, is that it enables doctors to see 2 to 3 times more patients per day. When the doctors are seeing more patients, that means that they are making more money. The doctors are making more money. The hospital is making more money. And when they get to see more patients, that means they're providing more patients the access that they need. And just imagine, the doctor is spending the same amount of face time with the patient. What the artificial intelligence is actually eliminating is all of the documentation and data collection activities that the doctor would usually do. And that is the part of the job that they hate anyway. So what we are doing is actually eliminating the electronic medical record FaceTime the doctor has and replacing it with patient FaceTime. This leads to higher patient satisfaction, higher patient health status, and higher physician satisfaction. Everybody wins when artificial intelligence is used correctly. Now, when you talked about data analytics is not artificial intelligence. Data analytics is just the study of data and then looking as a backwards mirror on what that data is bringing. What artificial intelligence is doing is actively engaging with the patient. And I'll just go ahead and share my screen here. What we do is we engage with the patient through a mobile application. And it's not even a mobile app, it's just a website. It's a progressive web app. The patient would go through and register themselves just like they would normally do, enter why they want to visit the doctor, and a chatbot will engage with that patient to collect information. The next step is whether it's at home using augmented reality to guide to take perfect medical measurements, or in the office, the AI will instruct the patient to take medical measurements and guide them to a location to take labs if required. The AI will continue to ask questions, take measurements, and order labs until 99.9% of all of the illness probability space is squeezed into 5 illness groups. A one-page summary is sent to the doctor. Now the doctor has all the images, all the sounds, every question that they needed. They have all the information they need to diagnose and treat the patient on one page. That one page enables the doctor to be able to take what's normally 17 minutes of patient data collection and patient documentation down to 2 minutes. Within 2 minutes, they have reviewed everything they need to know about that patient. Thus, whether it's a video call at home, whether it's a telemedicine call inside a retail facility or inside a clinic, or if it's face-to-face, it doesn't matter. The doctor now spends the time telling the patient why they diagnosed them the way they did and why they're treating them. This leads to a 94% patient satisfaction rating for patients who use AbbVie Medical. This system changes the game when it comes to providing patient access. Why? Because if every doctor in the world could see 2 to 3 times more patients per hour, that means every person in the world for a very low cost can have access to healthcare. That is the dream, and that is what artificial intelligence within healthcare brings.
I totally agree that it's possible today to put artificial intelligence into the hospital and use it. And I know a lot of successful, like your successes in this. My question, I have a different question. what the customer acquisition cost and how long time it takes to transform your funnel into your customer.
So from an ad analysis perspective, we sell to hospitals, doctors' offices. Those are our customers, and the hospitals and doctors' offices then sell to their customers, of course, similar to how they do it today. And so for us, we engage with the C-level suite inside the clinic organizations that we engage with and present the value to them. There is significant ROI. This is just an example. A clinic chain in the United States, they had about 100 clinics and that delivered about $130 million of revenue. After adopting AbbVie Medical, they got $20 million of revenue coming from existing clinics because they're able to see more patients in those clinics, and an additional $20 million of revenue from telemedicine patients at home, as well as through retail partners. That is an additional $40 million of revenue. And when you look at the profitability of those clinics, it almost all drops to the bottom line. As such, delivering this type of efficiency to the marketplace, it makes it easy as long as you are speaking to the right people in the organization.
Yeah, right. For example, from my experience in our company, it takes about 5-6 calls to make a closure, and closure rate is maybe maximum 10-15%, despite the fact we just replace the old bulky devices by the new devices, much better devices. So there is no something new they have to just implement. It's the same, just replace and make healthcare more efficient. So the most important question in customer acquisition, and for the last 3 months, it is get accelerated very much, but still customer acquisition cost and time to close the deal, it's very, very long and not profitable at all. So this is the problem, I think the main problem with AI, the main problem with all new technologies like virtual reality technology. A lot of companies doing these. So it requires a lot of capital to penetrate into the market. And so this is very challenging. So I think it's very important to pay attention how to accelerate the customer acquisition time and to reduce customer acquisition cost. Otherwise, it doesn't have any meaning.
Yeah, so I do agree that selling into healthcare organizations is very different than selling into any type of other organization. Previous to my current company, I used to run a $1 billion business in the self-driving vehicle technology space. We sold to everyone from Google or Tesla all the way to Daimler or GM or Toyota. And they all used our technology. It was a great business. We sold the business, and I started looking at companies to invest in, and I thought healthcare would be a great place to do it. When I started looking at the way clinics worked, I was extremely shocked at how little money they made. And so that was the idea of let's automate everything around the doctor, just like we automate everything around the driver in a car. We will automate everything around the doctor in the clinic. And that was the foundation of the company that we created. Now, the interesting thing is that selling into a hospital system, because their major motivation is not profit, their major motivation is actually many different things. You don't really have a person dedicated to drive efficiencies to improve situations within the healthcare space. That is something that is really unfortunate, and I agree. The cycle times to getting design wins is definitely longer in the hospital space than even in the automotive space, which is, infamously very long.
Right. And also this business is maybe what most of other businesses is relied on person-to-person communications and relationships. This is very important in healthcare. They do not buy from stranger like other industries do. So they buy based on trust and based on very good relationships. So first you have to build relationships. You have to build trust with you and with your company and definitely with your product. And just after that, they start to try your product. And even what we experience, if they feel something wrong, if just in a, I don't know, in a 5% rapport just broken, it just ruins the business of this organization. So it's a it's like take a fish. So it's very difficult business based on person-to-person communication, on relationships, and so this is what I would like to add. But really, artificial intelligence is future, and one of our technology that we're developing is automation on patient monitoring, because today everybody doing manual patient monitoring, even live longer, everybody. A patient doesn't have passive monitoring. All monitoring is active. So a patient, instead of just playing with his children, has to stop his activity, make measurements, talk to physician, and it's possible for some early disease stage patients. But if we're talking about patients like COPD patients, COVID-19 patients, take like as example, they don't like manually measurements. They don't have capabilities to do this. They should rely totally on passive measurements. We should put something on them. We should put something inside. And they have to forget about this. So patient engagement here doesn't have any meaning. You cannot engage these patients. They're not engageable. They just cannot do it. And so we dedicated with our technology to deliver passive patient care, passive patient monitoring. So patient could deliver and flow data to the care team continuously, at the same time forget about making any activity towards engagement and to focus into his health. Our patient focus on his own life, and we focus on his health. And if something happens, we ask physician to check what happens and make intervention. Nadia?
Yeah, sure. James, do you have any comments on that?
No, I agree. It's an opportunity for everyone to engage in a more automated healthcare system.
In terms of your own businesses, what are the key challenges and opportunities do you see now? What are the key milestones you want to achieve in terms of maybe geographic expansion, or what is on top of your priorities? James?
Yeah, so currently AbbVie Medical is in a growth stage. We released the product last year. We are now in 18 facilities, as I mentioned earlier, and currently in trials with over 1,000 more. So it's a pretty exciting time for us in the United States. We are looking at overseas expansion, looking at Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia at this time, and happy to partner with anyone who would like to move forward in that effort.
Thank you, James. And Leon, so what are your top priorities? As I know you are in geographic expansion as well.
Yes, we're lucky to build our platform that exactly fits requirement to monitor COVID-19 patients without any changes, so as it is. So we start our sales in February this year in the United States. But very, very quickly, companies from UK, from Europe, and even from Asia, we have 2 clients in Japan, for example, start to come to us and ask for our solution for monitoring their patients. So we talked in the beginning only about patient monitoring. So take our device, connect to the cloud, and get data from the patient. And because there is a huge demand, for example, our recent very big, very good contract with Ascom in Italy. This is a part of the biggest telecommunication company in Europe and worldwide as well. And we partnered on monitoring of patients in Italy. This is where we start from. And we understood that just monitoring is not an issue. What we have to do, we have to somehow automate this data, and I mean insights or some derivative based on this data to deliver to care team. That's very important. So we built 2 levels of information. The first level of information, we call it holistic level of information. That is, we measure patient trends. It's very important for COVID patients because, for example, silent hypoxia could happen when oxygen saturation of patient goes down, and patient doesn't have any sense of this, and in a couple of days, patient could die. So readmission of COVID patients. So all these is very important things, and this our holistic approach enables to make some first emergency level about what happened to patient. So, for example, how it looks like, physician or care team just received some very, very smart alert. I'm not going to explain this now. It's a very smart alert, not false alert, never. That something happens with this patient. Hypoxia index changes, sleep quality changes, sleep apnea happens. So all these what body could generate, all these changes just appear in a computer of care team. And if there is a real problem, that's most important, care team could unlock patient data till the resolution about 1 second and watch what now happened to this patient compared to, for example, an hour ago and a day ago with resolution up to 1 second, and to decide, like in ICU, but patient at home. So this is interesting approach that created a huge interest from our partners worldwide. Currently, we have about 26 partners and customers worldwide. We're working with UK, French, Spain, Italy, Japan, UK, and but what's interesting, we started from US, and we found today that United States is the most difficult market for us, most difficult. So maybe 3 times more difficult to make agreement with US organization than with European organization. I don't know why, because in Europe, different type of admission and all this stuff, but in any case, we have a lot of US customers, but it's really became quite difficult to change their mind and make a business with US healthcare organizations. Much more difficult than with other countries.
Thank you, Leon. And in terms of fundraising, do you think that in the current condition, it will be easier for healthcare startups to attract more financing?
It depends on stage of startup. For early stage, almost impossible. So just they have to go to accelerator or get some government grants. That's all. For round B, much easier, because they could show the growth, they could show the progress. For example, just recently, Israeli company Title Care raised another $50 million. $50 million. So I think round A is the most, maybe most problematic, not most difficult, most problematic, because they have product already, but they don't have track record yet. So this is Dead Valley for startups, I think.
Hello, Stephen. Could you also introduce yourself? You're muted. You're muted still.
How about now?
Yeah, that's great. Could you introduce yourself and also join our panel?
Yeah, first of all, my apologies for being late. It's a happy occasion. We're working on, we're very busy, and we're working on a lot of deals, which I didn't expect to happen after the pandemic, but it is happening. I am Steve Masur. I am a partner at MGA, a law firm in Los Angeles and New York. We do a lot of international deals, so I'm excited to be on this call talking about the topic that we're discussing today. And I have about 30 years of experience working on deals. So that's my introduction.
So what do you observe currently across your clientele in healthcare, life science, biotech, and what are the trends you're seeing in terms of mergers and acquisitions across border deals? Do you see a bit of a spike in this activities between investors and projects in this field?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, life science obviously is more in the spotlight because of the pandemic, in my opinion. People are looking at life sciences, and they're looking at the problems that have happened during the pandemic and focusing on that. And of course, there are entrepreneurial solutions to some of these problems. And so we've seen more healthcare and life sciences related deals. And also, our firm in particular has an active practice in the cannabis space. And so we've seen quite a lot of life sciences related deals that relate to CBD. And that's been a very interesting practice area for us because of the, I guess I would say the variables. CBD has the potential to compete against products like ibuprofen and Aleve. And so the big pharma companies are focused on it. However, one of the big problems in the industry is a lack of good regulatory guidance and frankly, a lack of regulation. And so we are seeing problems that relate to the claims that are made about what CBD products can do or cannot do. And I think that's going to create an interesting environment for M&A where there are a lot of, frankly, charlatans joining the business. That is the typical cycle of things, is that a whole bunch of people rush in, and then hopefully you see some good value created as people learn and get better at the art of making these products. And at the same time, regulators will be focusing, both trade regulators, like in the US, the Federal Trade Commission, and also food and drug regulators, like in the US, the Food and Drug Administration, will be looking at these products as they become more popular. So we're seeing more deals in that area. And the amount of money that is looking at those deals, there's a lot of money looking at those deals, but not investing immediately at this moment. There's a lot of fear because I think that many of these investors agree with what I've said, and they kind of want to wait until they see the value before they place their bets.
Thank you, Stephen. And James, what are your observations in terms of deals and maybe your own fundraising activities or previous rounds raised?
Sure. So Abbey Now Medical has raised about $15 million to date. We've gone through all of our technology development and initial deployment into our clinics. Going into the next round, it's very interesting. I would say, you know, if you have zero revenue and an idea, I think it's relatively easy to get funded. If you've spent a lot of money and are just ramping revenue without having, you know, revenue approaching $300,000 or $400,000 a month of recurring revenue, then it's a little bit more challenging. So we're in the middle of our Series A. You know, we're having due diligence. There's a few interested parties, but I would say the pandemic hasn't affected it. From that perspective, there's plenty of money out there, specifically in the healthcare automation space that we play in. But at the same time, you know, everybody wants lots of traction. And if you've got 200 or 300K a month of recurring revenue, you could raise money from anyone, anywhere. It's super easy. When you're 50 to 100, which is kind of where we sit, then, you know, people are looking for terms that may be unreasonable, I would say. So we're playing the game and going through it right now, and hopefully be able to have some good news here in a month or so.
It's the classic catch-22. You need the money to get to the money that people will invest in, to get to the traction that people will invest in.
Yes, it definitely goes that way. Yeah. But there is money out there. So in terms of specifically in healthcare AI and healthcare automation, which is the space we play in, there's lots of money. So now it's just a matter of lining it up to the rules that every single VC has, which is just, you know, a little bit nuanced, different, and making sure you find the right partner.
Thank you, James. And Leon, what would be your recommendation for startup leaders in healthcare, life science, or medtech?
I think it's important, like James said, to overcome the barrier that is about $100,000 or $200,000 per month in revenue. We're somewhere around what James as well. So we're between 50,000 to 100,000, and our growth is not so linear. So sometimes it's drop, sometimes it's go high. So it's not gradually growth, I would say. And so it's very important to work towards to increase sales, because sales is everything at this stage. A lot of money, but to make this money coming to you, it's very important to show the track record, to show the steady or exponential growth, or organic growth, and to work hard to have at least half a year of steady growth. And only in this case, investor will start looking at in your company, and maybe will invest.
Thank you, Leon. And Stephen, what would be your recommendation for startup leaders and for VC investors who are looking at new opportunities in these segments of healthcare, biotech, and life science?
What are my recommendations? I mean, I think my general recommendation is to really drive toward traction, as we've previously heard. Drive toward a feeling of longevity that will give investors the feeling that you are indefatigable and that you will be there for the long haul, no matter what happens in the world. And so, you know, as a CEO or a management team leader of an early stage company, you can choose to just go for the money, meaning just go to raise money, or to be more sort of creative about your approach to it. And I would recommend the latter. If you can do big deals or small deals with big names, where it shows longevity, I think that's very helpful. A lot of companies have been well, I'll talk more generally about life sciences second, and first about CBD. So the process for making CBD involves the use of ethanol and alcohol, which can also be used to clean your hands. So a lot of these entrepreneurs have gone out and started to sell hand cleaner because of the pandemic. And they've been able to get some traction doing that. Now, that's not even in their business plan, but there was an opportunity. They jumped on it. They made some money that will allow them to be there for the long term. And that shows investors that they will take opportunities that the world throws at them that are unexpected. I think as an investor, I would look at that positively and say, well, it might be hard to sell your CBD product in the current situation, but you figured out a way to make it through the pandemic without, during a time when it might have been difficult to raise money. And you've showed me that you have staying power, that you're going to last. Once you have my money, you're going to last. And I think investors are really looking for that. Of course, they want the big score, but most of the time their money gets lost. So if they see a management team that's going to be very respectful about how the money is spent, conserve the money when it's needed, and last for the long term, then they see a management team that is going to cross the chasm, break through the catch-22s of early stage business, and deliver value to them.
James, what would be your standpoint there? What should be in the focus of attention of every startup leader in healthcare, or biotech, or life science in the current environment to sustain, to succeed, and to keep up with their growth plans? Either they're targeting to be unicorn or just a mid-sized business.
Well, everybody wants to be a unicorn. I'm quite sure.
I can already see that you have a little bit of a unicorn horn growing in your forehead now.
Well, that's definitely the dream. That's for sure. The formula, I think, is relatively straightforward, and both Stephen and Leon touched on it. Creating the technology, I think, from a theoretical standpoint, is easy to do. Getting the traction, and easy is a relative term, of course. Some of the stuff is hard to do. But actually selling somebody on your product, having them see value, proves the model. And that is what investors really want to see. Specifically in healthcare, as Leon mentioned early on, getting adoption in the healthcare space is incredibly challenging. And over the years, many good technologies failed, not because they should have failed or the technology was bad, but it was only because they couldn't get adoption for whatever the reason may be. So as you go forward and you're looking for companies to invest in, many VCs take the easy route by saying, okay, I will assume if you have any type of revenue, then all of a sudden, you're more interesting than a company that doesn't. And if you can have consistent, large recurring revenue that gets to the $3 to $5 million a year mark, then you have the capability to be that unicorn. And so all of a sudden you become a lot more interesting than the guys that may have, $500,000 a year of revenue. And so it's a catch-22, which is incredibly painful in the healthcare space because it takes so long to ramp revenue that you have to be able to protect that money that you get invested in, use it wisely to be able to have enough runway to get where you need to go. And so that is really the beauty of the system. And the challenge of the system is that revenue makes success, but you need money to get the revenue that makes success.
I think that's very well stated. And I wanted to touch upon another sort of point that you started to make, which is that every business is different. So in healthcare in particular, there are companies that are primarily doing R&D, research and development. The internal research and development departments of major companies have gotten smaller in the last 20 years or completely disappeared as these companies saw that they could rely on outside management teams to develop new intellectual properties. And that's in a completely different game than the one that we're talking about. So if you think about business on a continuum of build intellectual property and then sell it to someone, which could be a 5 or sometimes even a 10-year process, depending on how difficult the problem you're trying to solve is at one end of the continuum. And at the other end of the continuum, a business that is out in the market trying to gain traction with either no technology or intellectual property or technology or intellectual property that has already been protected. They're two completely different games and you approach them differently. So the former game, you have to raise a lot of money, enough money to get through the end of your development cycle. And that's what you're pitching the VCs on or the funders, whoever the funders might be. And in the other game, you're pitching your ability to get to traction relatively quickly. So that's what makes being a manager of an early stage technology company interesting, because the game might be different. You thought you were playing backgammon, but in fact you're playing chess or checkers, and you might have to change into that mode at the drop of a hat depending on market circumstances.
Thank you, Stephen. And Leon, what would be your final comment before we close the event today?
Stephen, yeah, you are totally right. It depends on founder. So if founder came from engineering area or from, I don't know, science, they want to change the world. They came to change the world, and they do something very profound. They're doing something very big, and they're looking for big money to make this difference. If people come from marketing field, from sales field, they understand better how to sell. So they're doing something on the level of MVP very quickly and start to sell immediately. I know one guy who came to me 10 years ago, oh no, 7 years ago. He said, I want to make some button alert for nursing homes. I said, I can show you 1,000 companies doing this exactly. He said, no, I'm doing the same, but I know how to sell it. Today he has revenue about $30 million, my dream. And I still try to get agreements with big companies. So this is what investors should take into account as well when investor doing due diligence. So a lot of things.
And one more, an attending point to that, very similar, is there is a lot of crosstalk in the industry, in the venture capital and fundraising industry. I was actually headed out on vacation during the middle of the pandemic. Our vacation was to get in our truck and drive a long way, 13 hours, because we didn't want to take airplanes. And I got pigeonholed by this investor who was asking me operating CEO type questions for a company that was founded by a product guy, and complaining about this founder. He clearly wanted to invest. I had introduced them, and it was painful for him because every time he asked the founder a question, the founder gave him an answer that sounded like a blow-off answer. And the reason is because the founder was a product guy. The founder was all about changing the world, all about creating a product that nobody had ever had, and he had created such a product. But when he was asked a question like, what's the post-money valuation? He just had no idea how to answer that kind of a question. So there was a lot of crosstalk in which the investor was asking questions that the founder really had no idea how to answer. And so the point I'm trying to make for founders is look at yourself very objectively. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And find somebody else who has the strengths that you don't have. In this case, this person he's a genius, absolute genius product guy, not an absolute genius CEO, not somebody who really should ever be in front of investors unless they specifically want to talk to the product guy. The Steve Jobs character who is a outstanding product guy and also an outstanding CEO is very rare.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And that brings us to the end of our today's discussion. I thank you all for this sector-specific Startup Leaders Club today, and welcome you to join our different formats of events, which are roadshow, speech competitions, fireside chats, keynotes, and masterclasses, where we can devote more time to in-depth discussion of particular cases or some of the industry issues. So thank you so much, and I wish you good luck for the rest of the week, and see you soon on our next event on Thursday. Bye-bye.